a person who is a Muslim, who says that they are Muslim, but will never pray a single salah to Allah Azza wa Jal. There's nothing more important than salah. Nothing. I do not believe there's a single thing that exists on the face of this earth that's more important than salah. It doesn't exist. Because when you are saying that I'm not ready to obey Allah Azza wa Jal, I'm not ready to pray, I'm not ready to wear the hijab, I'm not ready to stop looking at haram, I'm not ready to stop listening to music, etc. You're basically saying I'm ready for the punishment of Allah Azza wa Jal. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. ولا تكونوا كالذين نسوا الله فأنساهم أنفسهم أولئك هم الفاسقون. لا يستوي أصحاب النار وأصحاب الجنة أصحاب الجنة هم الفائزون. لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله. وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر. سبحان الله عما يشركون. هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم.
Sheikh, you're a good asset to the community. Honestly, may Allah reward you, and you know, the strangers appreciate having people like yourself on the podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here.
May Allah reward you.
May Allah bless you, and thank you very much for inviting me.
May Allah reward you. Our aim is to benefit the youth as much as we can. We want to clear things up. We want to guide. We want to help. It's not a podcast to just sit and drink a coffee and have a laugh.
MashaAllah.
You know, we are here and we want to get answers for the youth, and we want to help them out as much as they can. We are living in the West.
Of course.
You're in the West as well. You know exactly how it is.
I'm not quite sure if Australia is the West.
It's the West of something.
Geographically. But it is probably
Is that what they call us down under? Yeah.
I don't know.
MashaAllah.
What do you think the biggest issue we're facing as Muslims living in sort of the West?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, thana'ulillah, salatu salam ala rasulillah. Wallahi, to be honest, in the times that we're living in right now, there are many issues that we're facing. There are certain issues that are to do with our identity as Muslims, especially living in the non-Muslim societies. we tend to forget our true identity and how we are meant to be as Muslims and what Allah Ta'ala has created us for. And we tend to sometimes get so caught up in this worldly life and we completely abandon and neglect our purpose of life, which is to worship Allah Ta'ala. A number of things that I find strange. It is, since we're on the strangest podcast, I find extremely strange is that a person who is a Muslim, who says that they are Muslim, but will never pray a single salah to Allah Azza wa Jal. These things are the essence of your Islam. Praying to Allah Ta'ala, which is an obligation that Allah Azza wa Jal created you for. If you're not praying, then what are you doing with your life? If you are one who completely doing everything that Allah Azza wa Jal has prohibited, all the haram, without giving it a second thought and without even thinking whether this is okay or not, and every trend that occurs and everything they see on social media, you do it and you follow it and you say it and you act upon it, etc. All of that is something that is extremely strange, and now it's becoming very common where I live in the actual West. In the UK,
not down under.
Yeah, exactly. In the UK, it's a lot of these things are very common, and they say that we're a bit ahead of you guys when it comes to evil, and just like that, we're ahead of you guys perhaps when it comes to khair too. But a lot of these things are there. But there's something else that's very common, I think, nowadays, which is happening to our youngsters, and it is that people are starting to adopt certain ideologies that have nothing to do with Islam, right? Certain ideologies that completely contradict Islam. They go against the core principles of Islam, what Allah Ta'ala has taught us in our religion that we are meant to live our lives by. These ideologies are telling you the complete opposite and teaching you to live your life in a complete opposite manner, right? So these are things that I believe that the only way we can combat them is that we must spread that knowledge and awareness and the correct information to our brothers and sisters and help them, because a lot of the time these things occur due to ignorance. So these podcasts and these, projects, they are very important. I believe that we are using and utilizing the media and social media in order to spread that positive message, to influence people positively. The ulama, they say that one of the karamat that Allah Ta'ala, He grants an individual is that He's able to inspire people and is able to inspire them positively and have a good influence on them. That's a very good thing that Allah Ta'ala, if He gives you that ability and He gives you that blessing, that you use it to obey Allah Azza wa Jal and you use it to call people to the path of Allah Ta'ala. So every single one of us, Allah Azza wa Jal has granted them a certain blessing, certain ability, etc. Use it for Allah's path. Every single one of us, if we took that responsibility and we felt that, I'm going to use my talent, I'm going to use my gift to serve the religion of Allah, to bring people closer to Allah Ta'ala, then the state of the Muslims will be better, will be better people, will be better human beings, will be better members of society, would have a greater influence on the world as a whole, and the world will transform.
SubhanAllah. And when people hear that, they think, how can I do that when I'm trying to provide for my family? How could I use my skill, in da'wah? And they'll say there's no money in da'wah. I've heard that so many times, subhanAllah. It doesn't have to be all of your time, صح? Like, it doesn't have to be, 80-90% of your time is used in da'wah or using your skill, for little to no money. You could also provide for your family and also use your skill in the path of Allah, صح?
100%. The thing is, when it comes to calling to Allah Ta'ala, when it comes to serving the religion of Allah Ta'ala, it's something that we should do in our daily lives. It's not something that we're telling everyone that you have to be the one who stands in the masjid and delivers a lecture or delivers a khutbah, etc. No, we do it through our actions. We do it through our conduct. We do it through our dealings with people. When I'm at work, I'm a da'iya ila Allah Azza wa Jal. The way I conduct myself, behaving as a Muslim, upholding the values of Islam and conducting myself based on that is da'wah. My actions are a lot more effective than anything that I can say. And then on top of that, if I'm actually saying things that are positive, that bring people closer to Allah Ta'ala, to remind people of Allah Azza wa Jal, that's a bonus. The Prophet ﷺ, he had a young Jewish man who used to serve him, and some narrations say that he was his neighbor. And this boy, he became extremely ill, and what occurred was that he was on his deathbed and he was going to die. So the Prophet ﷺ went to go visit him, and when he went to go visit him, his father was standing there, and the Prophet ﷺ, he said to the boy whilst on his deathbed, he said to him, embrace Islam. That's all he said to him, right? So the boy looked up at his father, and he's hoping that his father's going to tell him what to do. His father told him, Ati Abul Qasim, obey the Prophet ﷺ. So then he embraced Islam and he died upon Islam. But something that's very interesting in this narration is that the Prophet ﷺ, when he went to that young boy, there was no time for him to tell him about the beauty of Islam, to explain Islam to him. None of that occurred. The conversation, all it was, become Muslim, say La ilaha illallah. That was it. And then he said it. Why? That's the question, right? The reason is that all those years he spent serving the Prophet ﷺ or being his neighbor, he saw Islam in the Prophet ﷺ. He saw it in his character, he saw it in his conduct, and that was sufficient for him when he was told to embrace Islam to immediately accept it. Right? So what we do is a lot more effective than anything we could say. So every single one of us is a da'iyah calling to Allah Ta'ala through his mannerism, through his conduct, through his actions. So we must be those who are extremely conscious of what we do and our Islam, so that when we better our Islam as Muslims, it will have a positive effect on others as well, because we do that for Allah Ta'ala, and Allah Ta'ala will make you a tool that serves His religion as well, inshallah.
I'm not sure if you heard this saying. I heard regarding raising your children as well. Sheikh, have you heard the saying? They say your kids will never forget what you do, but they might forget what you say.
It's just very true.
Yeah,
it's very true. That's why tarbiyah of the children, they say that it's very important that parents, that they do righteous things in front of their parents, in front of their children, that they are doing acts of worship in front of them, that they are praying Salah in front of them, that they are reciting Quran in front of them. Why? Because the children remember that. If you say to your child, pray Salah, read Quran, and you're just telling them, but they don't ever see you doing it, then it won't be as effective. But when they see the father is going to the masjid for salawat, or you're taking your son with you to the masjid as a young child, and he sees that and he's witnessing that, or he sees you sitting in the corner of the house reciting the Quran with the mushaf, or he sees you giving charity, these things, they are engraved in the mind of the child. They remember that. So they're going to grow up thinking, my father used to give charity, so I need to give charity. My father always used to read Quran every day. That means that I need to have a daily portion of Quran every day. I can't leave it, because my father showed me and demonstrated to me practically that this is a daily routine.
صح.
Do you see?
SubhanAllah. That's a conversation that we were having with our mentor Jamal, our Sheikh from Preston. And he was actually telling me, he goes, even him growing up, he goes, it was a very tough household. He goes, but everything that they learned and they had habits from, that they gained the habit from, was from what they seen their parents doing.
Exactly.
Yes,
precisely.
And it just shows you, how important it is to show your kids through action.
100%. Children, whatever their parents do, they take it like it's revelation. Why? That's the only correct way. So if they see their parents doing certain things that are good, those things are going to become their habits. And just like that, if they see their parents do negative things, then it has a negative effect on the child. Right? So it's very important. We're very wary. Children are very intelligent. They're very smart. That's what the Prophet ﷺ, one thing that is very important for parents as well is that don't treat your child as a child. And I always tell people that don't treat them like they don't understand, that they can't comprehend. No, speak to them like they're intelligent. If you treat them in an intelligent manner, and they'll be intelligent, they'll be mature, they will be the way you treat them, right? And the Prophet ﷺ is the best example for us in this. The Prophet ﷺ, he demonstrated to us that in the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, Abdullah ibn Abbas, when the Prophet ﷺ is with him and in this period of time, and when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, Abdullah ibn Abbas was no older than maybe 13 years old, right? So years before that, before the Prophet ﷺ passed away, he says to Abdullah ibn Abbas, and he's probably under 10 years old at this time, he says to him, "Oh young boy, I'm going to teach you some words." And then the words that he teaches him are things that you would say to an adult. But Abdullah ibn Abbas, he heard these words from the Prophet ﷺ, and he never forgot them. They were engraved in his mind, they were in his heart. He lived his life according to it. What are these words? He said to him, "Ihfadillah yahfadik." Be mindful of Allah. Be one who observes the rights of Allah and abstains from the prohibitions of Allah, and Allah Azza wa Jalla will preserve you and protect you. Be mindful of Allah Ta'ala by following the obligations of Allah and abstaining from the prohibitions of Allah Azza wa Jal. You'll find Allah Azza wa Jal in front of you, guiding you, assisting you, aiding you. If you ask, only ask Allah. If you seek assistance, only seek it from Allah. And if you know that if all of the Ummah, if everyone came together to benefit you with something, they shall not be able to benefit you except with that which Allah Azza wa Jal has decreed for you.
Something so simple but heavy.
So simple. And if they all came against you to harm you with something, they will not be able to harm you except with what Allah Azza wa Jal has written against you. The pens have been lifted and the scrolls are dried. He said that to him. Now, these are core principles of our iman, our belief, our connection to Allah. He's teaching him to be attached to Allah, to be connected to Allah, to only rely upon Allah, to never be one who depends on human beings, that you're completely attached to Allah Azza wa Jal. You detach yourself from human beings, you ask Allah, you seek assistance from Allah, you seek aid from Allah, you believe that only harm comes from Allah and benefit only comes from Allah, no one else. So that makes an individual very strong mentally, spiritually, physically. So they grow up with that tarbiyah, they'll be able to cope with everything in life because they have Allah.
Subhanallah.
That's the tarbiyah.
And how relatable is that, subhanAllah, with what's happening now in Palestine? And
Exactly.
there's so much of a debate, Sheikh, with the permissibility of protests. But even if you move past that, subhanAllah, like, people don't realize that you can protest all you like if your relationship with Allah is not there. Yani we see on Sundays, the streets are full and the masajid are empty. Subhanallah, everyone is out on the streets, and then you go to the closest masjid to the protest and it's empty.
Now, no doubt, with the situation that's going on in Palestine, Gaza, with our brothers and sisters who have been bombarded and murdered, may Allah Azza wa Jal grant them victory and aid them and deal with those who are oppressing them. No doubt, it's very important that we create awareness, that we are constantly speaking about this matter, because this is a matter of our faith, it's our creed, it's a matter of Al-Aqsa. This is Islam. Yani it's not only we are talking about Palestine because it's a political matter. No, it's not a political matter. It's a matter of deen. It's the essence of our aqidah. It's a matter that is important to every single Muslim. And just like that, all the other Muslim lands that the Muslims are being oppressed and so on, they are very important, whether it is in Sudan or what's happening to our brothers and sisters there or anywhere else in the world. But this is a matter that, just like we are creating awareness and we're talking about it constantly, we also must take self-responsibility, right? What do I mean by that? What is very important that we must understand is that our individual actions as individuals, they affect the ummah as a whole. When I'm a better Muslim and I'm closer to Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala and I better myself spiritually, then that has an effect on everyone else. It has an effect on the rest of the ummah. So when these calamities occur, when the ummah is suffering greatly like we are right now, the question that every single one of us should ask themselves is that, what have I done to contribute to the suffering of the ummah? What are the sins that I keep engaging in, the acts of disobedience that I keep doing, that I'm not repenting from, that I feel no guilt or remorse doing, and I'm doing it as if it's okay, which is contributing to the suffering of the ummah? What are the obligations that Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala has obliged upon me that I've completely neglected, which is contributing to the suffering of the ummah? Because until I fix this and I do something about it, then perhaps our status in ummah will not change. If every single person thought like that, wallahi, it would have a great effect. Just like, we feel the emotion, which is great. We're meant to feel the emotion. We're meant to feel the pain and the suffering of our brothers. But just like that, we need to change that into action. We need to translate into action. We need to start doing something that we are able to do. And the first thing that every single one of us is able to do is to change themselves. We have the ability. Every single one of us has the ability to do something, to change themselves, to take positive steps to change themselves. When we see those videos and we see the images that of our brothers and sisters, what is being done to them, that emotion that we feel, that pain that we feel, we should translate it into that I'm going to do better, so that Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala can uplift this from our brothers and sisters who are suffering. That's what we should try to do, we should strive to do, and we should seek Allah's help to do, because I'm not saying that it's extremely easy to do that as well. It can be tough. We go through different struggles and so on, but when we're seeing what our brothers and sisters are facing and the test that they are being tested with and how tough that is, our test perhaps seems a lot easier, a lot less than theirs. So we should think, if I at the moment are feeling helpless, that I can't do anything to help them, well, the least I can do is try to help them by becoming a better Muslim, becoming a better servant of Allah Azza wa Jal, so that by being one who does that, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala grants his victory, because that's the condition that Allah Azza wa Jal tells us, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu in tansurullaha yansurkum wa yuthabbit aqdamakum. Who you believe, if you grant victory to Allah, what does that mean? That you're one who follows the commandments of Allah, abstains from the prohibitions of Allah, that you serve the religion of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, Allah will grant you victory. That's a promise. But it's conditional, so we must fulfill our side of the deal. Now,
can you just imagine that everyone, as you said, just focused on themselves, within themselves and within their families. And I think that's the biggest thing that we lack these days, is that we're constantly pointing the fingers at everyone else. And I always say, imagine just the individual just focuses on himself. You would see such a huge change. And it may not change dramatically within our generation, but you'll see the fruits, you know, that you look after and that you sow, you know.
Precisely.
And going back to, you know, talking about the tarbiyah of children and stuff, what's your advice, or what's the best way to take it for parents that restrict their children from practicing their deen properly, or move their focus onto other things, such as, you know, it may not be something haram, but, you know, focus on your studies, and they've completely left off their Islamic studies and teaching their kids, you know, right from wrong, or their kids may want to do something such as fast Monday, Thursdays, and I had this incident was brought to me from someone that I know, where there was a 10-year-old child, and he was attending the same school as my son, and he used to see my son fast Mondays and Thursdays, so he decided to do it one day. And when his mum found him awake at 5 a.m, I think it was, to have a suhoor, she asked him, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm gonna fast today." And she's like, you know, stop being silly. Gave him a nice smack and said, "Get back to bed." You know, and it's something that it's like, you know, you see the fire inside of them, like they want to do something good, and you see that a lot of the parents from a young age, as you said, they're not treating them like adults. They're not talking to them with wisdom and you know, with something that's beneficial. You know, what sort of advice can you give for parents that have children and that are raising them up as Muslims?
Wallahi, Islam, I find it strange that a Muslim parent would want their child to not practice Islam in its totality. I find it extremely strange, because the reality of the matter is, that's what you say,
The reality of life.
of life. Completely got it wrong there.
No, we're almost there. Say it 2 more times, will be good.
Inshallah.
You need to watch more of his
Inshallah.
videos. Yeah.
The reality of life is that if parents want their children to benefit them, because every parent wants their child to benefit them when they're older, to take care of them, to be concerned about them, etc. The only way that's going to occur is that when you raise your child upon Islam.
That's right.
Because the only way of life that teaches your child to care about you, to take care of you, to be dutiful to you, to put you before themselves, it is Islam. It is Islam.
Yep.
So no matter how much you push them to dunya, you push them to you know, to pursue a career and to be the most successful person when it comes to worldly affairs, but what benefit is that to you when they are older, they have their own family, they could neglect you, they throw you in a, you know, a care home?
Yes.
What benefit is that to you? Because you haven't instilled Islam in them. You haven't raised them upon Islam. Now, that's one element of it. Another side of it is that your child, it's very important that you teach them the deen of Allah Ta'ala. I can't stress how important that is, especially in the societies that we live in today, where we are facing so many threats to our identity, to our faith, etc. It's so important that we raise our children upon Islam and teach them Islam from young, because that's what's going to protect them from all the adversity that they face that surrounds them. And the Salaf, they would say, there's a statement that I always remember, and I believe it's so important that we do it. They would say, "Allimu awladakum al-Qur'an wal-Qur'anu yu'allimuhum kulla shay." Teach your children the Qur'an, and the Qur'an will teach them everything. Meaning that teach them the Qur'an, memorize the Qur'an to the best of their ability. Teach them the teachings of the Qur'an, to understand the Qur'an, have a connection with the Qur'an, meaning the deen of Allah Ta'ala, and that will teach them everything. It will teach them how to navigate through life. It will teach them how to be successful in life. It will teach them how to be those who are disciplined, so that they can be successful in everything they do, whether it's worldly or akhirah based. It will teach them to be good to their parents, their families, to be good to their neighbors, to be good to society, to be positive members of society. It will teach them to be those who are generous. It will teach them to be those who are helpful to others. It will teach them to be those who are resilient. It will teach them to be patient and forbearing. It will also teach them to be those who have certainty in the promise of Allah and the reward of Allah. And whatever they face due to the decree of Allah, they are patient with it and they endure it. It will teach them all these teachings that you find in the Quran, because of the divine way of life. So it's very important that if you want to teach your children the best way of life, there's no other way but the way of Allah Ta'ala. No man-made way will ever make your children successful people. So that's one thing that we must get into our heads. We must remind ourselves that they'll never be successful unless they're connected to Allah. Because without Allah, there's no success. The one who raises people and degrades people is Allah.
It's that simple, huh?
It's that simple. So when I'm connected to Allah and I'm attached to Allah and I have that strong bond with Allah Ta'ala, then Allah Azza wa Jal will never abandon His servant who is connected to Him.
SubhanAllah. I think ultimately it goes back to how much do people actually believe in the success of the afterlife being more important than the success of this life?
Yeah.
And this was something I was thinking about, a few days ago, and we were thinking about what we should talk about on the podcast. And I was thinking that, subhanAllah, how many Muslims actually believe in Allah, in the sense that how many Muslims believe in Allah's promise, and inna wa'dallahi haqq, the promise of Allah is true. When الساعة لا ريب فيها, the hour, there's no confusion about it. Subhanallah, there's no doubt about it. How many of us actually live our lives thinking about the detailed punishment that Allah, tells us about, and the rewards of Jannah? When we're going about our day, and a woman goes to put her hand out to shake our hand, and we go and we shake that hand, and we forget about the hadith that it's better for you to have a nail to your head. How many of us actually, we actually visualize these things and see it as if it's in front of us? Of course, that's a whole other level of iman, but to actually see it as the reality of what is actually going to happen.
Exactly, because that is precisely what can make all the difference. The more conscious you are of the hereafter, and the more conscious you are of the reward of Allah for what you do, and also the punishment of Allah Azza wa Jal for the sins that you commit and the acts of disobedience that you do, it makes a huge difference. And that's precisely when the ulama, rahimahumullah tabarak wa ta'ala, they define taqwa. They say that God consciousness, that fear of Allah Azza wa Jal that's in the heart, that prevents you from doing acts of disobedience. One of the things that when they define it, they say that part of it is being conscious of the hereafter, being one who prepares for the hereafter, who's constantly thinking about my destination. I'm headed towards there. Therefore, I want my ultimate destination to be one that's good, not one that's going to be a punishment, and so on. So, of course, these are things that Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala reminds us of in the Quran. And Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala constantly tells us in the Quran that true success, it is the success in the hereafter. That true success that we're seeking, it is not measured by, worldly matters. If I don't succeed in certain things in this world, it doesn't mean that's the end of the world, because there's another life where Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, if you do that which pleases Him, Allah Azza wa Jal will make you the most successful. Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala will grant you the greatest kingdom that you could ever have. That the one who has the least in Jannah will have 10 times this world. That's the one who has the least. So imagine the one who has the most in Jannah, what they're going to receive. All that is waiting for you, but what it requires is some patience. What it requires is that you refrain from doing that which angers Allah Azza wa Jal. It requires self-restraint. It requires that you have self-discipline. It requires that you constantly have your eye on the goal, that you're constantly reminding yourself on the goal. And that's why it's so important that we're constantly reminded of, we're always told that we need to be in places and in gatherings and in surroundings that remind us of our goal. When you are in an environment where everyone, quote unquote, is grinding and they're trying to make money and they're trying to constantly get to a certain goal, what happens? You're always motivated to get there. You are constantly thinking about, I need to make this much, I need to make 6 figures, I need to make this much money. That's all you're thinking about. Why? Because you're surrounded by people who have the same mindset. You're surrounded by people constantly talking about it. They're constantly planning, they have strategies, they're strategizing, etc., to get there, to make sure that they achieve that goal. So we're told as Muslims, you need to be one who surrounds yourself with people who have that akhirah as the goal, who constantly have their eye on the goal, the akhirah, who are constantly thinking about it, who are constantly reminding themselves about it. They're constantly planning to get there, to be successful there, and so on. That's what Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala says to us in the Quran, وَابْتَغِي فِي مَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ دَارَ الْآخِرَةِ. Seek and make your priority that which Allah Azza wa Jalla has granted is going to grant you in the home of the hereafter. And then look at the wording that comes after it. وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. And do not forget your portion of the dunya. Now the word of the Quran, it's very important. If I, for instance, say to someone that don't forget to do this, don't forget to do this, don't forget to do this, what does that indicate? It indicates that this matter is not a priority, that you don't prioritize it because you're going to forget it. I need to constantly remind you. So when Allah Azza wa Jalla talks about the dunya, Allah is saying to you, don't forget your portion of dunya, meaning that it should not be a priority. It's something that just take from the dunya that which you require to get to the akhirah. And the Sahaba radiallahu anhum were the most successful when it came to using the dunya to be successful in the hereafter. Some of the Sahaba were very successful when it comes to worldly matters, right? But they used these worldly matters to be extremely successful in the hereafter. Uthman radiallahu anhu arda, when he was one of the most successful Sahaba when it came to business and very wealthy, what did he do? Every opportunity he got to use that wealth to better his hereafter, he did it. The Prophet ﷺ, when they didn't have much water in Medina and they were struggling with the supply, So there was a well in Medina that belonged to a Jewish man. And this Jewish man prevented the Muslims from drinking from it. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, who is going to purchase bi'r Roma, it was called, and Allah Ta'ala grant him Jannah and something better than it in the hereafter in Jannah. Uthman radiallahu anhu didn't give a thought. Straight away purchased it. And then when he purchased it, did he keep it for himself and benefit from it financially? No. He made it a waqf for the Muslims. Free. All the Muslims can benefit from it. And until today, by the way, that waqf for Uthman, it's in Medina.
Wow, Allahumma barik.
Is it still being used?
It's still being used. The water of Medina is still being used today. And the ministry of the environmental ministry of Saudi Arabia, they actually rented it from the Islamic Ministry of Endowment of Saudi Arabia. They rented it. They had to pay money to use it, so that money can be used to benefit the Muslims, because it belongs to the Muslims. Uthman radiallahu anhu, he still benefited from it all these years later, 1400 years later. That's an investment, right?
So the people are benefiting in this dunya, and he's benefiting in the akhirah.
In the akhirah. Right. And the thing is, when you're one who makes your akhirah a priority, and you prioritize the akhirah, and you give for the hereafter, and you're constantly thinking about the hereafter, you also get everything in the dunya. That's something that a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah, subhanAllah.
The Prophet ﷺ tells us that in hadith. He tells us, whoever makes the dunya his concern, all he's concerned about is dunya. That's the only thing on his mind. Allah Ta'ala will scatter his affairs. And Allah Ta'ala will place poverty between his eyes. All he sees is poverty. He never thinks he has anything, even if he has the whole world. And he won't get from the dunya except that which is decreed for him. And then he says, alayhi salatu salam, the one who makes the akhirah his concern, his priority is the akhirah, that I'm making that my priority, I'm focused on that, I'm working towards that, etc. Allah Ta'ala gather his affairs for him and take care of his affairs for him. And Allah Ta'ala place richness and contentment in his heart. And the dunya will come to him unwillingly. Dunya will chase him without him seeking it.
Whether he likes it or not.
Well, it'll come to him.
SubhanAllah.
And that's a reality. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they gave, and they got so much more. And it's not reported, by the way, that a single one of those companions became poor. It's not reported. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, when the Prophet alayhi salatu told the Sahaba radiallahu anhu to contribute to Jayshul Usra for Tabuk, he brought all of his wealth. Did Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu become poor? No, he became only richer.
SubhanAllah. Yeah, this is something that we don't think about. SubhanAllah. We always think, let me take care of these worldly affairs first.
Yeah.
We hear so many people say, I have a problem, I can't pray at work. I can't pray at my job. Or subhanAllah, we had even the other day we had in the tafsir class, a sister asked, she has to deliver Christmas gifts, for her job. SubhanAllah, if you think about it in that way, the way that you just so eloquently described, Allah will put the dunya in front of you if you just make the akhirah your priority.
100%. And the thing is, what we need to remember, we need to have certainty of, and constantly remind ourselves of, it is that rizq, provision, it comes from Ar-Razzaq, Allah. When I prioritize the provider who gives me that rizq, then Allah will give me more. When I please the one who is providing for me, and I put his pleasure before anyone else's pleasure, do you think Allah Azza wa Jalla abandon you? Do you think Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala is going to just let you suffer? La, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala will give you a lot more. And that's precisely what the Prophet ﷺ tells us. Man taraka shay'an lillah, awadahu Allahu khayran minhu. Whoever leaves something for Allah, he abandons something for Allah, for the sake of Allah, seeking the pleasure of Allah, the reward of Allah, the love of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala grant him better than that. That's a promise. And that is a fact. It always happens. Every time you leave something for Allah Ta'ala, there's been so many occasions that people have come to me and they told me, I'm in this situation and it's always been something that is haram. And I told them, Wallahi, ya akhi, there's nothing I can find for you except that I tell you, leave it.
For the sake of Allah.
And Allah Ta'ala, I promise you, will give you something better. I've never had a time where that person has never come back to me except that they said, Subhanallah, Allah has done this for me and I attained this and I've attained this. There's so many stories, right? It always happens. And the thing is that when I'm saying this to the person, I believe 100% it's going to occur. It's just a matter of time. Because the Prophet ﷺ tells us that, and that's wahi, that's revelation. And Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala told him that. So It's just a matter of time. I have conviction that whenever you leave something for Allah, it will happen. But you have to be one who has conviction that you have certainty in that. Not, I'm just going to give it a go.
Yeah.
If you are just testing Allah, you won't get anything.
SubhanAllah, that's the word, conviction. And when I say, do we really believe in Allah? And do we have that conviction in Allah's promises and His punishments? SubhanAllah.
I was going to talk about even talking about prioritizing Allah Azza wa Jal.
No.
Even when it comes to prayer, how important. Like I try to explain to a lot of the youth how important Salah is. You know, I'm sure you can say it a lot better than me. I talk about Salah, that it's our lifeline. You know, we had Sheikh Samir on last time.
Yeah.
May Allah preserve him. He's someone very dear to our heart. And he was speaking about Salah. And I think that we don't do podcasts to bring something new. It's a reminder. It's the same message. Of course. You know, and how important is Salah? How important is that relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal?
There's nothing more important than Salah. Nothing. I do not believe there's a single thing that exists on the face of this earth that's more important than Salah. It doesn't exist. The Salah is the most important matter that we must engage in. It must go, it's before everything else. Even your parents.
Allah.
The obligatory prayers come before your parents. We are told that when you are in the obligatory prayer and your parents call you, you must complete that prayer. But if you're in a voluntary prayer, you must respond to your parents.
SubhanAllah.
That shows us that even the obligations, they have levels. There's nothing on the face of this earth that's more important than your relationship with Allah Ta'ala, your Salah, your obligatory prayers. We must put it first. When we put Allah Ta'ala first, Allah Ta'ala put us first. When we prioritize Allah Ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala prioritize us. But when we turn away from Allah Ta'ala, Allah Azza wa Jal will abandon us. Because Allah Azza wa Jal tells us in the Quran, نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَنَسِيَهُمْ. They turned away from Allah Azza wa Jal, so Allah turned away from them. So how do we expect to ever succeed in our lives and ever achieve anything in our lives if we are hearing Hayya ala Salah, Hayya ala falah, the caller, the mu'adhin is calling us to the prayer, calling us to success, and then I don't respond to the call of success. I say I don't want the success. That person who abandons the Salah, all of success and goodness is going to abandon them. They're not going to receive it due to their abandonment of that success. So when you are being called to that, it's a matter of us responding to that call before it's too late. Because imagine this. Imagine we were told that we're going to meet a king from the kings of this world. And that king, prior to our meeting, we're told that he's going to ask us one question. And if we get the answer to this question right, he's going to reward us abundantly. And if we get the answer to this question wrong, he's going to punish us severely. Prior to that meeting, you're going to be worried about that question. You're going to be constantly thinking about it. You're going to perhaps practice a long time before you get there so that you don't get it wrong. The Prophet ﷺ tells us that every single one of us is going to stand in front of the King of the Kings, Allah Tabaraka Yawm al-Qiyamah. And Allah Tabaraka is going to ask us all one question. It's the first question that every single one of us is going to be asked Yawm al-Qiyamah. The first matter we're all going to be questioned about is Salah. If it's sound, everything after will be fine. But if it's not intact, everything else does not matter. You'll be doomed. You'll be punished. It shows us that the importance of Salah, no matter how many righteous deeds you're engaging in and how many good things you're doing, they are worthless if you are not one who perfects your Salah. That's what the ulama, they take from the hadith, that the key to your other righteous deeds being accepted by Allah Ta'ala is that your Salah is intact. If your Salah is not intact, then all these other righteous deeds that you're doing do not matter.
SubhanAllah. Even if
all
it's,
that
if
charity,
it's fasting and
all that fasting, all that charity,
Allah.
all the recitation of the Quran, all the good deeds that you're doing that are good and righteous and please Allah Ta'ala. If your Salah is not intact, all these things will not even be looked at Yawm al-Qiyamah. They'll be worthless. It shows us the Salah is the greatest priority. It's the greatest matter that we must engage in. I can't stress that enough, that nothing comes before Salah. You will never be successful in the hereafter without Salah.
And subhanAllah, we see some extreme examples of people breaking their fast and missing Maghrib. You know, they go to these grand iftars, with hundreds of people, and there's no break for Salah.
Or not praying Maghrib and Isha, but praying Taraweeh.
Yes.
Voluntary prayer and not praying the obligatory prayer.
And
strange.
And you have even people that pray Tahajjud and then they'll skip Fajr. They'll have the early suhoor and then they'll miss Fajr.
That is Shaytan. Wallahi, that's Shaytan. You know, Shaytan هذا is big mushkila. Why? Because he knows exactly what he's doing. He's been around for a very long time. So when the ulama, they talk about the plots of Shaytan, how Shaytan will deceive an individual and how he will try to misguide them. His ultimate goal is to try to get an individual to disbelieve in Allah Ta'ala. If you can't do that, he'll come down a level. He will try to get you to do innovations and add new things to the religion of Allah Azza wa Jalla that had nothing to do with it. If you can't get you to do that, he'll come down a level. He'll try to get you to do major sins. If you can't get you to do that, he'll come down a level. He'll try to get you to do minor sins. If you can't do that, he will do this, and this is what happens the most of the times. He will divert you from that which is more important and more virtuous and more significant to that which is less virtuous and less important. Right? So what will happen? He will divert you from doing obligatory deeds to voluntary deeds. And the obligatory deeds are more important, and they are the things that Allah Tabaraka is going to question about. He will tell you, no, do these voluntary deeds. He will tell you to do khair, Shaytan. He's giving you da'wah. But he's giving you da'wah to things that are not important. Things that are not going to benefit you. Things that are going to cause you downfall. He'll tell you, it's Ramadan. Pray Qiyamul Layl. من قام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. Whoever stands Ramadan with iman, ihtisab, his previous sins will be forgiven. You go to, qiyam and tahajjud, inshallah, but leave fajr and leave maghrib and sleep the whole day, don't pray dhuhr, asr, and, Shaytan.
Yes,
right?
SubhanAllah. Fasting and missing dhuhr and asr.
It's strange.
How many times does that happen, SubhanAllah?
And there's some as well that tell you, that we don't go to the masjid's in the heart, and the cameraman's dying right now.
Exactly. All these things, Shaytan is trying to deceive people and misguide them with these things. So we need to be those who are wary of that. And we must be aware of the plot of Shaytan so that we combat it.
SubhanAllah. And it wouldn't be a podcast if there wasn't at least a marriage question. But this isn't exactly, it's not about, finding the one or something like that. But I want to speak about married couples who distance each other from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And subhanAllah, I know someone in my extended family who was praying, and then he married someone who was, everyone, assumed that she was, of the same kind of aqidah, same level of religiosity. She wore the hijab, but as soon as he married her, he stopped, he doesn't pray as, all his salawat and, subhanallah. And we see this so often, brothers.
We're getting a bad review after this.
Yeah. brothers marrying sisters, maybe because of, the way they get along, in terms of interests of the dunya, or based on appearance. That happens so often.
Or the other way around.
Of course, and the other way around, and it happens just as often.
Sahih.
Yeah, subhanAllah. I'm just talking about this instance, in my family. But it happens so often in the other way around. A sister will marry a brother who's not right for her. A brother will marry a sister who's not right for him. And they tear each other away from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What would your advice be for people in that situation?
It's as simple as this, that the closer the two individuals, the married couple, are to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, the closer they will be to each other. The more distant they are from Allah, the more distant they will be from one another. And it's very hard for a relationship that has no Allah in it to flourish and to be intact. A lot of these relationships that are distant from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala tend to end very badly. But when these two individuals, they are worshipping Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala together, they are reminding each other of Allah Azza wa Jal, and these are some essential parts, these are essential things that help keep your marriage intact no matter how difficult things get, because it's natural for things to get difficult in a marriage. You're going to have arguments, you're going to have disagreements, they're going to be, difficult times, etc. But what helps you get through this, it is that relationship with Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, that you have a time that you and your wife, you dedicate to doing something that is for Allah alone, together. Whether you recite Quran together on a daily basis, you still recite Quran, or you read a book together, or you pray Salah together. Something that you must do to worship Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is essential, even if it is one deed, but you stick to that one deed you do together without fail. That helps keep the household peaceful. It keeps Shaytan away from your house. A house that the Quran of Allah Azza wa Jalla has been recited in, Shaytan won't enter. And Shaytan is the one who's trying to destroy this relationship, and he's the one who's trying to cause this relationship to break down. So if you are combating that with this remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jal, but with the ibadah of Allah Azza wa Jal, with the book of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, by doing righteous deeds together, etc., that will help you keep that relationship intact. Many people, they always are, they're struggling in their marriages. Many people, they tend to find it very hard in their marriages. They find it hard to cope because they're saying, my husband is doing this or my wife is doing this, and they're complaining about each other, etc. But a lot of these things can be solved with just salah. That's what the Prophet ﷺ taught us. He taught us, don't make your homes a graveyard. What does that mean? That the men, when they come back to the masjid, that they pray the voluntary prayer in their house. And I add to that you should perhaps sometimes pray the voluntary prayer with your wife and your family. Get them to pray with you. Nothing wrong with that. That will bring a lot of barakah and khair to your household. Right? So these things are things that help save a marriage and bring barakah to the marriage and make a marriage flourish. And it makes a relationship one that extends from this world to the hereafter. Right? And that's the sort of relationship, a marriage that we should all aspire to have. And it's not easy, but it's something that if we just implement this one thing, it will make everything else perhaps a bit easier, inshallah.
SubhanAllah. So if someone is in that situation at the moment, and for example, they say a sister, she goes out to dinner with her husband, and she wants to pray. Maghrib time comes, but he's constantly saying, no, we can't stop, or we can't find somewhere to pray. What's kind of like a 2-3 step solution if a brother or a sister is in that kind of situation where the other spouse is actively calling them away from the path of Allah?
Subhanallah, may Allah Azza make it easy. But when it comes to things like this, you have to be very strong, and especially when it's salah. Salah, it's something that there's no compromise. And if someone's trying to stop you from praying, just pray. Don't listen to them. Just pray. Find somewhere, just pray. Because no matter what this person is telling you, no matter what they're doing, nothing comes before Allah Ta'ala. And then in that salah, make a lot of dua that Allah Azza guides this person. Because that guidance ultimately is in the hands of Allah Azza wa Jal. And there's only so much you can do, and you never give up on the person. You keep speaking to them, you keep reminding them of Allah, you keep giving them advice in the best manner possible to remind them that this world is going to end. You're going to stand in front of Allah Ta'ala. You're going to be questioned about this. If you're not praying to Allah Azza wa Jal, this is severe, this is dangerous, this is detrimental, right? That's important. But at the same time, making dua for them, of course, asking Allah Ta'ala for them, it's important. But on top of that, sometimes you can't do this by yourself. You need help sometimes. Sometimes you need to get someone that this person respects and listens to speak to them, right? But sometimes you telling someone else about for instance, your spouse's problems can cause problems in your marriage. So sometimes you have to go about it in a very discreet way that it doesn't come across that you've fed this person information, and then later on your husband or wife will turn around and say, why are you telling others about our business?
It's like betrayal,
You can't. So if you're really concerned about them, you'll try to do it in a way that it doesn't cause more harm to your marriage and they don't believe that you betrayed them. And you only do this as a last resort after you tried everything, because you always try your best to keep your marital affairs in-house. That you try to keep your affairs within your home, and you don't take it out to the public and people are finding out about your business. You should stay within your home. What happens in your home, just stay private. But if it's getting to the stage where you are struggling and you can't do anything about it and you find it very hard and you really need help to help this person, then perhaps you can seek help from someone else if necessary. No.
Yeah, like we're told in the final steps of trying to save a marriage, to bring someone from her family, someone from your family.
Exactly.
Like, we've been speaking about this the other day, like the first right that your child has on you is the spouse that you choose.
You choose the right spouse for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Subhanallah. And even speaking about marriage, I have seen with a lot of the brothers and sisters, I feel like there's this gap between each other, in a sense of the ones that are trying to fear Allah and trying to do their best and get married for the sake of Allah. But I feel like with the sisters and with the brothers, that they are still living this Western life. And in a sense that, like, for example, if the brother wants to, I'll give you an example. The brother wants to get married and he doesn't like his wife working in a certain area. And he may, by approaching his sister, he may say, look, I don't like you working in this certain area. And you see that a lot of them always have an issue with it. What's a way that we can tackle this step by step to get the brothers and sisters together that are getting married for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, and just fixing this bridge up between fearing Allah and also having a westernized life, because I feel like they're so brainwashed. I wouldn't say brainwashed. I'd say more there's an influence. There's a Western influence on them, whether it be the sisters or the brothers. It's both, you know. But you do see a lot more of the sisters where they do want to live that independent lifestyle and whatnot. You know, what's a way that we can tackle that, you know, in a very good way, way, you know.
You know what? The one thing that we need to understand is, you know, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala is the one that we love, and the one we love more than everyone, everything. That's very important. Why is that very important? Because Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, who we love more than everyone, everything. If you love someone dearly, you do anything for them, right? Because you love that person and you want to get their love and attain their love, right? So when we say that we love Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, that means that we would do anything for Allah because we love Allah and we want to attain the love of Allah Azza wa Jal. So that means that when I'm commanded by Allah Azza wa Jal to do certain things, I do it instantly because Allah commanded me to do it and I love Allah. So my answer is that I love Allah. Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala commanded me to pray. I pray because I love Allah. Allah Azza wa Jal commanded me to fast Ramadan. I fast Ramadan because I love Allah. I give zakah because I love Allah. I'm dutiful to my parents because I love Allah, right? I wear hijab because I love Allah, etc. That should be my answer. But on top of that, Allah Tabarak wa, just like that, when He gave us all these obligations, all these commands, He also commanded us to obey certain people. Just like we're told to obey our parents in that which is yani halal and not haram. The wife is told to obey husband in the halal, right? So why did she do it? Because she loves Allah. Right? Because she loves Allah, she is going to obey husband in that which is ma'ruf and halal and that which is good. Nothing unlawful. In unlawful things, she's not commanded to obey him in anything. The Prophet ﷺ, he said in a hadith, he said, إِذَا صَلَّتِ الْمَرْأَةُ خَمْسَهَا وَصَامَتْ شَهْرَهَا وَحَفِظَتْ فَرْجَهَا وَأَطَاعَتْ زَوْجَهَا. If the woman, she prays her 5 daily prayers, and she fasts her month of Ramadan, and she protects her private part from haram, and she obeys her husband, it will be said to her, enter from any gate of Jannah that you wish. Right? This is what the Prophet ﷺ is saying. So these things are what we are being tested with. Now, when the husband, he says to his wife that I would prefer you not to do this, he's doing it because he has your best interest at heart. No husband who loves his wife wants to harm his wife, right? I'm talking about a husband who actually cares about his wife. He will never harm her. When he tells her that I would prefer you to do this, I would not want you to do this, etc., it's for her own good. He wants her benefit. He wants to protect her. He's trying to fulfill his duty because his responsibility is to safeguard her, is to protect her, is to provide for her, is to take care of her. So when his wife is in places that he thinks may not be good for her, may be harmful to her, then now he's not able to perhaps fulfill his duty, his responsibility that he's going to be questioned about by Allah. Allah is going to question him if his wife goes to a place where it's that's harmful to her, or is not good to her deen, or not good to her health, or is not good for her safety. And if anything was to happen to her because he let her go there, Allah Azza wa Jalla will question him and he may be punished for it. So when he says that I would prefer for you not to do that, help him in obeying Allah. Don't be one who makes it difficult for him in obeying Allah Azza wa Jalla. We're meant to assist each other and aid each other in attaining Jannah. So let's make it easy for one another. And just like that, the husband must be one who's merciful to his wife and compassionate to his wife and makes things easier for them and helps her and so on. Like these are things that marriage is a partnership. You're on the same team. You're meant to help each other. You're meant to assist each other, etc. Right? You're meant to be concerned about each other. You're meant to be those who are merciful to each other. Allah Azza wa Jalla بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. That Allah has placed between you mawadda, which is affection and love, wa rahma and mercy. Right? These two matters are very important in marriage. Now the affection and love, it can go up and down. It decreases, increases. But the rahmah, that mercy must always be there. That mercy and that compassion to one another, it must always be there, to be merciful to each other, that you're compassionate to one another, etc. Because if that mercy is not there, then this marriage will be miserable. It will be a marriage that is based on violence and aggression and so on. And that's not how a marriage is meant to be. It's meant to be that which is full of rahmah, the rahmah of Allah Azza wa Jal. And the more merciful you are to one another, the more Allah Azza wa Jal grant you His mercy. Allah Azza wa Jal says that the Prophet says in the hadith, "Irhamu man fil ardi, yarhamkum man fis sama." Be merciful towards those on the earth, and Allah Azza wa Jal will grant you His mercies. If we want Allah's mercy, we must be merciful to one another. No.
SubhanAllah. We'll leave inshallah with one more question, Ustad. We do appreciate your time. Just on this topic, and this is kind of an epidemic as well that we're facing. Brothers who, they'll say, SubhanAllah, I'm not ready to, get off, the bad part of social media, looking at women and this and that, until I get married. And sisters saying, I don't think I can wear the hijab, until I get married and, I have the support of my husband. I'm not very confident, my family, they're not very supportive of me with the hijab and this and, these kind of issues. How do we combat these issues?
I hear that a lot as well. And it's a statement that's very common. That people say, I'm not ready to stop doing this. I'm not ready to wear the hijab. I'm not ready to get up the haram. I'm not ready to start praying. I'm not prepared for it. I'm not ready. Right? I find it astonishing that an individual, a Muslim, can ever utter that statement. I find it astonishing. It's astonishing to me that a Muslim can ever say those statements when he is a Muslim and he believes he believes in the hereafter. He believes in the reward of Allah. He believes in the punishment of Allah Ta'ala. Because when you are saying that I'm not ready to obey Allah Azza wa Jal, I'm not ready to pray, I'm not ready to wear the hijab, I'm not ready to stop looking at haram, I'm not ready to stop listening to music, etc. You're basically saying I'm ready for the punishment of Allah Azza wa Jal. You're basically saying I'm ready for the hellfire. Because who guarantees you that when you're ready, you're going to have a chance to do it? Who guarantees you that you're not going to die before you're quote unquote ready? And then you die in a way that angers Allah Ta'ala. You only are guaranteed the time that you have right now. You must treat every moment you have as if it's your last. If you have that mindset, there's no such thing as I'm not ready yet. You have to be ready. You have no choice but to be ready. If you are put in a situation where you're forced to do something, you're going to do whatever is necessary to do what you need to do to protect yourself from anything that's harmful to you. So now when you're being told that you must do this to protect yourself from the hellfire, and these are the only moments you have that you're guaranteed, you don't know if you're going to be granted another chance. Your mindset will be that, I'm going to do that to protect myself from the immediate punishment, from the immediate harm. So I'm not ready to that mindset. I don't understand it. It's very detrimental and harmful. Secondly, it is that whatever you make a habit, it won't automatically change after you get married. If you're looking at haram and you listen to haram and you engage in haram, then it's very delusional to think that when you get married, that you're all of a sudden going to abandon it altogether. This is something that you have to start doing immediately. You have to do something about it instantly, that you have to repent to Allah Azza wa Jal. Because these bad habits, unfortunately, what tends to happen is that people, they take it into their marriage. And then it causes a lot of strain to their marriage, and it causes a lot of harm to their marriage and so on. So something must be done about it beforehand. If you're looking at haram, if you are witnessing haram, if you're watching haram online again and again and again, then you're going to pay a huge price in your marriage. You will, a huge price. So something must be done about it before you get married. You're not automatically going to be fixed when you get married. And a lot of people think that, when I become married, I'm going to become more serious. I'm going to become more religious. I'm going to become more mature. I'm going to become more responsible. I'm going to take things more seriously. But that doesn't tend to happen all of a sudden. SubhanAllah. You are the same person you were before marriage. You have to start doing something about it right now.
SubhanAllah. Barakallah feek, Shaykh. Jazakallah khair for your time.
Jazakumullah khair for
absolutely honored to have you on.
It's an honor to be here. May Allah bless you.
Jazakumullah khair for watching another episode of the Strangers Podcast. Anything that we said bad is from us and from Shaytan. Anything that we said good is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah reward you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.